Another big story that hit the newsstands this morning, talking about opinions about NSA leaker Edward Snowden. They generally fall into two main categories: those who think he deserves a parade and those who think he should be thrown in jail. The New York Times and the Guardian newspapers today came out in favor of clemency for Snowden, or at least some kind of a plea deal. The Times editorial board says, quote, "When someone reveals that government officials have routinely and deliberately broken the law, that person should not face life in prison at the hands of the same government. President Obama should tell his aides to begin finding a way to end Mr. Snowden's vilification and give him incentive to return home." I want to bring in our senior legal analyst, Jeffrey Toobin, along with presidential historian and Ronald Reagan biographer Craig Shirley. Jeff, I want to start with you. The Times says that Snowden has done a great service to the country. Those are the Times' words. You disagree with that?
I do disagree with that. Look, I'm not going to pretend that this hasn't been a healthy conversation for the country. It has been. But Edward Snowden went about it the wrong way. He broke the law dramatically, extravagantly, flagrantly, broke the law, and then instead of doing the right thing, which was going through the appropriate channels, going to Congress, going to the Inspector General, he fled to China, Hong Kong, and then to Russia, two countries where freedom of speech is non-existent compared to the United States. And I don't think that's something that deserves celebration. I think it deserves prosecution. Should there be a plea bargain? That's fine with me. I don't think he needs to spend decades in prison. But when you break the law like this, you deserve to pay a price.
Craig, you agree with the Times editorial board, and I assume disagree with Jeffrey Toobin. How do you respond to what Jeffrey's saying, and also to critics who say that Edward Snowden has damaged very important relationships between the United States and some of our key allies?
Well, there's no evidence that he's actually done those type of things, John. You know, this is a very important conversation that he has started with the beginning of the American Republic and has gone through the anti-sedition acts of the time of John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, has gone through the sedition acts of the early 20th century. And again, 100 years later, we are revisiting the role of the individual in relationship to the state. The founders very explicitly said that power should reside with the individual and not with government. And we've seen under George Bush and then now under Barack Obama and the Washington bureaucracy, the aggregation of power away from the individual to the state, and it's a very dangerous trend that we're on right now. Snowden, to my mind, has added greatly and mightily to the national debate and made done something very important that hasn't been done before in the last 10, 15 years.
Jeff, you have a keen sense of history, among other things. Is there any precedent for granting him some form of clemency or a plea deal? And what kind of long-term implications might that have?
Well, not that I'm aware of. Certainly the closest parallel, the one that Snowden's supporters always use, is Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked the Pentagon Papers, who was then prosecuted, but that prosecution was thrown out because of various kinds of government misconduct. I think the precedent that this would set is very troubling. Because Snowden was so successful and stole so much material that he was not entitled to do, the government is so panicked that they want to try to get it all back. That creates an incentive to steal more rather than steal less. And I think, notwithstanding this important debate we're having, this is not the way we're supposed to do it, and his behavior is not something the government should reward.
Craig,
may I jump in here, John?
Go ahead.
The debate seems to me on the wrong side of the equation. It's all on Edward Snowden rather than on James Clapper and the NSA. Repeatedly, the NSA has come forward and after being caught with their hand in the cookie jar over the last year said, no, we weren't doing these things. Now, yes, we were doing these things. Clapper testifies before Congress and says that the NSA is not spying on private citizens. Then later it's revealed he is. And yet there's no call for a contempt of Congress citation against him. Lying before Congress is a federal offense, last I checked. Is that the NSA is panicked, to Jeffrey's point, I think, because Snowden represents a threat because they have engaged in so much walking the line of law-breaking, in fact, maybe even breaking the Fourth Amendment repeatedly by illegal search and seizure of private American citizens in their places of home and in their papers and in their private activities.
Jeffrey, what about that? What about what Craig is bringing up? A major administration official either lying or telling a whole lot less than the total truth before Congress.
Well, that's very troubling, and I am not here to defend James Clapper at all, but that is an entirely separate question than whether Edward Snowden should be prosecuted. You know, there's a lot of loose talk about Snowden revealed illegalities. He's a whistleblower. There's exactly one judge who has found the NSA metadata, its big program, unconstitutional. Every other judge, every other member of Congress, every other member of the administration has approved this program. So the idea that he has revealed a rampant illegality is just not true, I think.
Let me just say, first of all, FISA is a administrative, it's not really a court per se. It's a rubber stamp administrative procedure. And as far as the court, I mean, we need to also, I think, court of public opinion is that the majority of the American people see Snowden as a whistleblower and not a lawbreaker. The second poll that came out recently was that 72% of the American people in a Gallup poll 2 weeks ago said that their government is their enemy. Those are very disturbing numbers in the current context of this debate and in the context of the 20th century about the role of how much power government should have over the private lives of private American citizens.
Guys, I want to ask you both this quickly. President Obama was asked about this issue of clemency or a possible plea deal in his last news conference before the holidays. He really dodged the question. Do you both think he will have to deal with this issue head-on in the coming weeks, especially as he addresses those recommendations from his hand-picked Intelligence Committee?
Jeffrey? I mean, he will have to.
Yes, he's going to.
Go ahead, Craig.
No, Jeffrey, I agree with Jeffrey. I think the president is going to have to deal with it. There's just too much sunlight on Snowden, and there continues to be too much sunlight on Snowden. And really, the acceleration of fact and information and public opinion is working for him and against the government. And if the president wants to stanch the bleeding wound, he's going to have to deal with it.
All right, guys, the commander-in-chief of the military, he is not going to give Snowden a break, although he may make some very appropriate changes in the NSA program.
He did say he was expecting to make some major statements on this relatively soon. I certainly would expect them either this month or before or in the State of the Union. Jeffrey Tube and Craig Shirley, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year.